Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today. I'm, of course, Greg Guy.
My name is Casey.
And we will be presenting for you our next iteration of Banghead Financial. This particular week, the CPI data came out for the month of March. And the number that we were told is at 8.5% over the past 12 months for inflation. Now, this is very significant because it represents the first time in a 1 month period over the past 10 years that the inflation number was over 1% at 1.2% just for the month of March. Now, subtracting that from last year's March performance, it gives you a difference of 0.7 or 0.8, and that jumps us to that 8.5% number. However, I, of course, have been very vocal about it. I believe that these numbers are fudged because they do not represent the housing market and various other, important, I would say, consumer products. So, thoughts, comments on getting lied to once again?
I think they're getting more open about talking about inflation because they have a scapegoat right now, and they're going to blame Russia and the war in Europe on it. I think inflation directly or indirectly is going to be affected by the prices in energy, that be it oil and gas and electric. And I think that the current administration in the United States holding back ability to create energy within our own country is directly affecting the prices of inflation.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I just heard earlier this morning that the President of the United States has gone back on his campaign promise and is allowed drilling and mining on public lands.
They have,
which he should have never stopped to begin with.
I do have. I was watching another podcast. I believe it was called. I think it was from Valuetainment. I'd have to go back and watch it. But they were saying that they were allowing drilling and mining on public lands, except the fact that they're having extreme difficulty on getting the permits to do so. And the ones that they are allowing you to have are not as good as the lands that they want to be drilling on.
Well, okay, that's actually interesting thing that I hadn't thought about, but I would assume that when they stopped all this, I'm not 100% sure, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I don't think that your permit is automatically null and void. So would their old permits not just be, valid as soon as they lifted that ban?
You have to get a new permit if you want to drill on a specific part. You have to get a new permit every single time.
Yeah.
You can't. You can't just use your old permit over in North Carolina to drill somewhere.
Right. But if it was a permit for 5 years and it got canceled after 1 year, is it still not good for the next 3 years?
It's possible that they just don't want to drill there anyways.
I'm not a lawyer, like I said, but I don't know. That's something might be worth looking into.
Yeah, I'll have to find that clip.
Okay, anyway, yeah, so 8.5. So if my math is actually correct, we are sitting somewhere, about 26% on actual inflation, with my 2.5 to 3 times factor, which actually sounds about right.
You could create your own inflation average.
Ooh. If you want us to create our own inflation averages, we can call it the
GIA.
Instead of CPI, it could be GPI.
I was gonna say
Guy's Product Index.
Guy's Inflation Average.
If you want us to do that, let us know down in the comments below. I guarantee you it'll be more accurate than whatever the government reports do. All right, moving on. Good conversation on that one. Moving on. There is a spot ETF for Bitcoin going through once again, I believe it is, the verification process through the SEC. Once again, obviously, this is not the first one that has been, submitted. However, I have heard rumblings that this may actually get approved this time. Approval process is probably the term I was looking for there.
Right.
So that'll be a spot ETF. So whatever money someone puts into this Bitcoin spot ETF will have to be settled not in cash when they pull out, but in Bitcoin.
Okay.
So thoughts on that? And I believe there's been like 4 already that had been denied. I think this might be the 5th one. Don't quote me on those numbers.
So when somebody trades stock, do they trade out in cash or do they trade out in stock?
Well, they trade out in cash because they have already purchased the stock when they get in.
So how much sense does it make to trade out in Bitcoin when basically you're investing in Bitcoin?
It makes it easier for, larger investors, institutional type players and everything to enter via a spot fund instead of, maintaining custody of those coins themselves.
Uh-huh. Seems like another kicking the shin to the little man. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, I mean, obviously you're always going to, for the smaller individual, you're going to want custody over your own coins because then you won't have to pay any sort of trading fees.
Right.
I'm sure they got probably introductory fees when you get into the fund, and probably some sort of exit fee as well. Knowing how Wall Street and not necessarily Wall Street, but financial managers are. But, I see the good news is that at least that gives we'll call it, I've heard this term before, smart money, like I said, hedge funds, financial institutions, everything, an easy way to get involved into the crypto markets.
I honestly don't want them involved in the crypto markets.
Well, that's
because all they do is muddy the waters.
I hate to break it to you, but they are already involved.
Right.
We just don't know about it.
They just want more control over it.
Well, like I said, we just don't know, to the extent
that
it is.
Right.
I mean, a common, conception or, thought process is that they are waiting for clear regulatory, laws and everything to be just laid out, in front of everybody and be like, okay, this is how it is, this is how it works. This is what you got to do, to please, the government, basically.
So right now it's like the Wild Wild West, and they're waiting for it to be.
Yeah, well, they're waiting for clarification, basically.
Right.
So, yeah, but I mean, if it does pass, I actually think it'll be a good thing. For price action, anyway. It'll probably lessen a lot of the volatility in the market. I mean, I have a theory that a lot of the volatility is caused by not necessarily these institutions, but their, high-ranking officials and officers that aren't doing this through their particular institution, but they're just, buying and selling, trying to keep the price low so they can, when they actually do get those regulations, then they can get the institution involved, and that will probably help their bonuses more than they would make just on buying, selling, trading, or even trying to tank price.
That's an interesting.
It's a theory I've been sitting on for a while. it's, you know, but I guarantee you some of that's definitely going on. So we'll see what comes out of that. The only other thing this week is obviously, and you know, it's one of those deals. Unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you probably heard about this. You know, the Elon Musk Twitter scenario, we will say at this point in time. And we're not really going to get heavy into it because we will be having a special episode of the Bangcast where we will be discussing this here. Probably won't be out this week, but it'll be out next week.
I personally think this is the biggest news of at least of the year so far.
Oh, so far, definitely. I mean,
maybe in the last decade.
I think it could potentially actually be bigger than the whole. I mean, I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but the whole Russia-Ukraine situation.
I mean,
it should at least be more important to Americans
because I think that it's somewhat intertwined.
Possibly, but we can get into that later. So there we go. That's what's happening here this week. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm of course Greg, your guy.
My name is Casey.
A little slow now.
I'm not used to it yet.
All right. And everyone out there watching, enjoy your evening.